few animals in here.
When I crash her into walls, I apologise.
Younger generations want to destroy stuff.
You know, women are looking for something different.
Transsexual Taliban cannibal.
It's your job, and yes, it might seem unreasonable.
I'm going to win the lotto.
They need their doll check.
G'day, I'm Sophie McNeil and this is Hack on Triple J. Now, have you ever thought about buying a house with one of your mates? With crazy expensive house prices, it could be the way to go. Get your foot wet in the property market without taking that full dive in. So how do you do it right? And what happens when it all goes wrong? Also tonight...
will take over. Johnson, Jesse Williams, he bottles it up. Lester, the safety, comes in.
The 22-year-old Brizzy boy taking part in American football's top draft camp. Yes, Jesse the Monster Williams could be about to make the big time. But what does he have to do to get through? Stick around. But first tonight, asylum seekers need to be registered with the police and neighbours informed. That's what the Coalition's immigration spokesman, Scott Morrison, reckons. He made the call in the wake of news that a Sri Lankan has been charged with allegedly assaulting a Macquarie University student. But Labor has slammed the call as dog whistle politics. And even Liberal backbenchers have said that the plan vilifies asylum seekers. Meanwhile, an organisation that arranges for asylum seekers to stay in people's homes said that the idea is completely unnecessary and that more support should be given to community detention. Hack's Julie Holman reports from Canberra.
I'm in the home of Glenn Conroy.
Ali was my first guest.
Over the last 6 months, he's hosted 2 asylum seekers in the spare bedroom of his Canberra apartment.
I had a spare room. It seemed like a good thing to do because I think that Australian community is the best place for asylum seekers.
But according to some politicians, if an asylum seeker comes to your neighbourhood, the police and neighbours should be informed.
We already know that police, for example, are not even advised, not even consulted. They should be, in our view.
Opposition immigration spokesman Scott Morrison made the remarks after a Sri Lankan asylum seeker was charged with allegedly assaulting a Macquarie University student. 45 asylum seekers were living on campus, although the man charged was not one of them. But the company which owns the accommodation at Macquarie Uni has terminated their contract with the Red Cross, which pays for the accommodation, following this alleged incident, and the asylum seekers are being moved elsewhere.
All these things make good sense for a good, cohesive society.
Mr Morrison's plan has support from other members of his party, like Erica Betts.
For a democratic society, I thought that we might actually be allowed to know what the government is doing when they're placing people next door to you.
The Green's Sarah Hanson-Young says a plan is vilification.
The opposition's attempt to link a very unfortunate and incredibly awful circumstance for one young woman to the entire debate on refugees and asylum seekers in Australia was disgusting.
Labor Senator Doug Cameron says it's dog whistle politics and it's getting very dirty.
The worst politics I have witnessed for many years in this parliament.
And even Liberal backbenchers like Mal Washer says it's going too far.
The law is there and the law has to be enacted against people who break our laws, but I don't think we need to identify various groups as being more high risk than anyone else.
Yeah, actually I heard that in the car on the way in this morning and I was absolutely disgusted.
Like Glenn, who we heard from earlier, Nicole Smith has also hosted asylum seekers in her home. She finds the opposition's plan offensive.
To have suggestions that the police should be informed when asylum seekers are coming into the community, I was embarrassed and shocked.
The asylum seeker hosting program is organised through the Australian Homestay Network.
You know, we were a little bit anxious. I guess we'd never done anything like that before. We're not teachers, we're not psychologists. We're just people who care about other people. And so we're a little bit anxious about it, but it was exciting.
I feel happy to come to Australia.
One of the asylum seekers to stay with Nicole is 30-year-old Nur Hashim from Burma.
She helps and show the market, show the city, show the halal shop, and show the bus stop. Living together, teaching English.
David Bycroft runs the Homestay Network. He says it's much better to place asylum seekers in a home rather than in group accommodation like at Macquarie University, for instance.
We only started doing that last May, and there's been an incredible response from Australians who actually want to help and be part of the solution rather than creating another negative story about asylum seekers.
Hosts have the asylum seekers in their home for a maximum of 6 weeks. They're paid about $140 a week. But there's a problem with the program. Just a handful of asylum seekers are being hosted, and only 600 have been placed since the program began last year. That's despite more than 3,000 people putting up the welcome sign.
Look, the program's gone very well, but the community organisations are a little slow getting out of the blocks with homestay. They are used to traditional ways of placing, and that's where they, go into share houses or communities where there's a lot of share accommodation. We don't like the conglomerated accommodation model because, we've just seen what happened at Macquarie University. When those sorts of things can happen, it can create this sort of press scare campaign, which is not fair on the asylum seekers. So we would like to see the community organisations step up and use homestay more regularly when there's available hosting are there to be used.
David Bycroft believes that forcing asylum seekers to be registered with the police and letting the neighbours know that they're there is an overreaction.
I'm disappointed that one incident or one alleged incident is causing such a reaction when we've successfully placed close to 600 asylum seekers in homes around Australia in our homestay program.
Glenn in Canberra says it's been 4 months since he's had anyone to stay, but he's hoping for a knock on the door soon.
Bed's made, cupboard's empty, bus timetable's still there, and my home is ready for the next asylum seeker, and there are hundreds of, if not thousands, of similar homes also ready.
And that's Glenn in Canberra ending that report from Julia Holman. And Hack did request an interview with the Immigration Minister, Brendan O'Connor. He wasn't available. We also asked the shadow spokesman, Scott Morrison, to come on. He also wasn't available, but we'll keep trying. We had the same problem last night with the ministers, but we'll give it another shot.
Bear in mind, this guy was a massive loser.
Well, there's absolutely no evidence for that.
And I think a lot of people share that feeling. Their parents were getting hard.
I don't know, to be honest.
22-year-old Brisbane local Jesse the Monster Williams could be about to crack the big time. But first, he's got to get through one of the most highly scrutinised sporting draft camps in the world, the American Football NFL Scouting Combine. It's a bit like the AFL draft camp, but on steroids, or peptides, if you like. This week, Jesse and the other potential draft picks have been competing against the clock, the scales and the psychologists, to increase their chances of being picked up for a pretty nice fee with one of these American clubs. So how, with all these tests, do some players still disappoint when they make it to the big time? Hack's Alex Mann has a story.
First up, picture this.
I nearly wet my pants looking up and just seeing 32 coaches. Each coach has got 6 staff beside him and they've all got stopwatches and pads of paper and just stand there right next to you saying, OK, let's go. So it's pretty intimidating.
Welcome to Scouts Take here on NFL.com on the final day of the 2013 NFL Scouting Combine.
This is the sound of the annual hype machine known as the NFL Scouting Combine. It's a week-long physical and psychological sports science orgy where the next crop of NFL hopefuls is put through its paces.
Who you got? Who was your star of the show here?
The goal, if you're a player, to smash the tests, move up the draft list, increase your value, and hopefully convince the watching club scouts that you're the real deal. And this year, there's an Australian in the mix. It's Jesse Williams. He's from Brisbane, and he's also known as the Monster.
Okay, my name's Arthur Williams, and I'm the Monster's dad, Jesse Williams.
We promise not to scare the daylights out of anybody.
Well, I spoke to Jesse this morning. You mentioned the word scrutiny. I mean, he's gone through 3 days of just IQ tests, Wonderlic tests, character tests, physical tests. The realistic way to think about it is it's a job interview times 100.
Well, that makes me feel a whole lot better.
Nathan Chapman is a talent scout based here in Australia and has been watching the Combine closely. He's the one you heard from right at the start there. Anyway, he says that the difference between running a 4.3 and a 4.5 second 40-yard dash at the Combine could be millions of dollars when it comes to negotiating your contract.
It can basically mean that 3 other guys in the same position might perform at their best, in essence look better than you physically, and therefore jump higher than you in the draft. And if you go from the first round to the second round, that can cost you millions of dollars, just by having those performances not spot on the day.
Those guys didn't run fast enough for me. They have to be burners if they want to make it into the first round.
The whole system is geared towards predicting who'll be able to handle that pressure cooker environment of elite-level matches and still dominate. Clubs obviously want to know that the guys they're buying will be able to perform. The thing is, says Wayne Goldsmith, a sports psych from Queensland, there is no way to replicate that unique set of conditions that players are exposed to on match day.
And I think that's where the limitations of some of these tests really get exposed. We can see a test for agility and say, well, this guy or this athlete is capable of stepping left and right at high speed. Well, let's get him in the team. As you say, put them in front of 50,000 people. At the end of a game, when they're fatigued, sun in their face, sweat in their eyes, big pressure, maybe a contract at stake or a grand final spot at stake, completely different set of circumstances. And we don't routinely screen for that.
Just like the NFL, the AFL's draft comp top finishers list is littered with unfulfilled expectations. Richmond Football Club are still smarting over choosing Richard Tambling ahead of Buddy Franklin in the 2004 draft. Tambling spent a few seasons disappointing fans and club officials at Richmond before eventually heading to Adelaide, while Buddy Franklin's superstar status at Hawthorn is obviously legendary. Jesse's dad, Arthur, says the monster knows all about expectations.
And I think nobody has higher expectations than Jesse does of himself.
Just before the scouting combine, the US sports media went into prediction overdrive about how much Jesse would smash the combine bench press record and how this could catapult his draft stocks up another level.
Jesse's supposed to bench, some crazy number and break every record known to man. Jesse put in a good performance on the weekend. Was it his best, personal best? No, it wasn't.
All right, the bench press is 12. That's a whole nother discussion. But he ran 4.95. I thought when I watched this guy on tape, he could run faster than that. He was quicker than that.
I actually believe it's ridiculous. I don't actually believe it works. I don't think that 0.03 of a second entitles you to be able to say that you're a better player. You might be faster, but you're not a better player.
So why this level of scrutiny and invasive analysis? Well, as the amount of money surrounding a league and its entourage grows to astronomical levels here in Australia as well as in the NFL, Wayne Goldsmith says somehow clubs have to justify the amount of money that they're spending on the players.
Well, I've got no doubt, even though it's not openly discussed or openly revealed as a motive, I've got no doubt that one of the reasons we've gone down this route where we're measuring things so tightly and relying on data so much is to provide some sort of background and some sort of objective evidence to say, look, we've invested in this player for these following 8 to 10 reasons.
Jesse now has to wait until April's draft for his NFL fate to be sealed. His dad says just don't judge him on a set of statistics.
I would like people just to be able to remember that Jesse is from Cannon Hill, Brisbane, Australia. And he's done a lot of work, including a degree, in being able to position himself to be in one of the world's largest sports. And I think that hasn't got anything to do with how fast he runs or how much he can bench or how smart he is. It's a combination of all these things.
And that was Arthur Williams, father of the NFL draft nominee and Brisbane local Jesse the Monster Williams, ending that report by Alex Mann.
It's hard to describe. It's like madness. It was just madness in our house. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Hack. You are listening to Hack on Triple J. I'm Sophie McNeil. Got a text here on Julia Holman's story about asylum seekers. Someone says, I just don't understand. If we're going to alert police and neighbours when asylum seekers move in because of one sexual assault, then we better alert the police whenever a football player moves into the neighbourhood. That's one person's perspective. Go along to our Facebook page. Let us know what you reckon. Now, with house prices at record highs in many parts of the country, the dream of owning a home feels out of reach for many young Australians. You and a lot of your mates might be in that very situation. So what if you all went in for a house together? Have you ever thought about investing with some of your friends instead of family or a partner? I'd love to hear from you. Have you gone in on a house with a mate? How did it work out? Was it the best thing ever? or something to avoid. Give us a call, 1300 0555 36. That's 1300 0555 36. Or send me a text, 0439 75 7555. Hacks Caitlin Sory's been pondering this very question, and she spoke to Gareth from Brisbane, who invested with a friend, but it didn't quite go to plan.
Yeah, g'day, my name's Gareth Morgan, I'm from Brisbane. I moved back home to save money for a house, and a friend of mine was also in the same kind of situation, and I thought, here's someone else who wants to buy a house. Yeah, let's take it from there.
How closely did you think about it before you went in on this property deal? Like, did you think about all the different scenarios and how they could play out? How far did you get into discussing those?
I suppose me and the person who bought the house, we kind of threw around different ideas. If I were to form a relationship, or if she were to form a relationship, what would happen? What would that mean? But then, what happened wasn't really accounted for. So she just said, look, we need to have a chat. I knew that she was seeing someone for about a month. I thought the conversation was going to go, I want him to move in, which I would have been fine with because that's something that we spoke about. But nothing really prepared me for what I heard. Yeah, so she became pregnant, and I wasn't a fan of living in a house with a baby.
Okay, so she said, I'm having a baby. And your reaction?
I went quiet really quickly. Pretty much, I didn't sleep for a few days afterwards, just thinking, hang on, I've just dumped a load of cash into this property, and I'm going to lose it all.
How did you end up getting the cash together to be able to buy her out?
Thankfully, my parents did help me out to some degree, both financially and emotionally. But don't get me wrong, if I didn't have to borrow money from them, I wouldn't have.
So now you're 27, you're in the property market, and you're pretty stoked on it?
Mortgages are great, said no one ever. Besides paying off a house, I could be doing other stuff with that money, being, travelling to London every month as opposed to paying off a house.
Less booze, more responsibility?
Yes, and then in saying that, since all this has happened, changing jobs to something that pays more, and then with that comes added responsibility as well. So it's not only the responsibility of having a mortgage by itself, but then you've got other stresses in life. So it's a better job than what I was doing, so I can't say no. And who's going to say no to more coin?
And what's your relationship like with your former partner in housing crime?
I sent her a text message just wishing her all the best. So, she's not on my Christmas card list, but I suppose we move on, don't we?
Hack Triple J. Yes, that was Gareth. Didn't quite go to plan, but it has for some people. Carly, it worked out well. She says, I've been living together with my friend for almost 2 years. It's been great. We went to a lawyer and we drew up a bit of a contract. What happens if one of us wants to move out or change our wills. We deal with stuff as it arises, and we haven't had an argument yet. But Bindi wrote on our Facebook page today, I've rented with friends on several occasions and it's always turned to shit. To the point I've ended up homeless a couple of times. There's no way I would buy a house with a friend after that. Give us a call. Are you thinking about doing this? We have a financial advisor in the studio to talk to us about this. Maybe you have a question for him. Give us a bell. Maybe you're already doing it. You're in the middle of buying a house with one of your mates. 1300 0555 36. That's 1300 0555 36. And in the Hack Studio, we have James Gerard, a financial advisor. How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Do you own a house with one of your mates?
I don't actually, no.
Because you've got no mates you'd trust to buy a house with, or?
That's right, yeah. I probably wouldn't do it.
So what can you do to avoid what happened to Gareth? We heard his story just there.
Sure. I think you just have to think about it because it's a pretty serious thing buying a house with somebody else. It's not like buying a pet dog. It's a pretty long-term and big commitment. So it's about thinking about all the potential things that could go right, but also things that could go wrong, and then planning for them and making sure that everything's right before you go ahead and make the purchase.
I mean, Gareth did think that they'd thought everything through. So what do you recommend then? Do people have to make sure it's written down and that they imagine that worst case scenario up front?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few different things which you can do beforehand. So firstly, it's a bit morbid, but get a will. So if something did happen and someone passed away, that it's all clear that where the property would go to. Secondly, is get a co-ownership agreement. So that spells out all the little things and big things with the property. So who agrees on who lives in the property, who agrees on how repairs get done, if there's a split down the track, how that gets settled. So having that agreement up front should help to avoid a lot of squabbles down the track.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to Danielle here because, Danielle, you bought a house with your ex-boyfriend after you guys had already broken up.
Yes, I did.
He must have been a nice, trustworthy guy.
Yes, we both couldn't afford to buy a house on our own, and yeah, we were still friends. And I mean, at the time we were both single. He's now got a girlfriend, which I'm not sure if it's any sort of an issue there, but yeah, it's never been a problem. We still get along. We're not quite like as good of friends as we were, but we just keep in touch for the house. And yeah, that was 5 years ago. So
wow. And did you guys come up with one of these co-ownership agreements?
no, we didn't actually. Yeah, I was just listening to that.
James, what do you think? What's your advice to Danielle here?
Yeah, naughty. It's not too late to do it. So probably seek out a lawyer. They can draw it up. But from the sounds of it, if it's already in place, hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong.
But why do you think it's sensible for Danielle to do that, even though they are, still good friends and everything is cool now?
Yeah, it's just about minimising risks because circumstances change and you don't know. So it's good to have that sort of agreement there on paper from both sides about all the different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for the call, Danielle. I'm going to go to...
Okay, thank you. Bye.
I'm going to go to Brett here because Brett's in the middle of this process right now. Brett, what are you doing to try and make sure it doesn't go the way it went for Gareth?
We went to see a lawyer just yesterday, actually, and try and settle nip everything in the butt before we even start. Things that might happen, could go wrong. Contracts between me and my mate and him and his girlfriend to protect me from anything that might happen between them and all that sort of stuff. That's what we're doing in the process right now, actually.
And did you guys discuss the worst case scenario, i.e. someone loses their job or, just has to bail, they want to move overseas, they want to travel, they don't want to be part of it anymore. Is that part of your plan?
Definitely. Like down to if someone passes away, what happens to assets and all that sort of thing. You got to go worst case scenario and then, hope that none of that happens. But that's everything that we've been talking about. And, everyone's going, oh, no, you can't do it, it can't be done, it'll all end badly. But, sort of marriages.
So tell me, what is that worst case scenario? That if both your mates bailed, you'd have to pay the mortgage by yourself, and you've thought about that and thought, no, I actually could handle that worst case scenario. Is that it?
Yeah, well, if that was the worst case scenario was to happen, then I'd be able to do it by myself. You got to be able to back yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for the call, Brett. Is that it, James? That you have to imagine that worst case scenario, have a frank discussion about it, and if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't get into it. Is that your advice?
Yeah, definitely. Because as I said before, it's a really big thing buying a property with someone, so it should really be thought out about all the different scenarios that could occur.
Is it possible to get out of a situation like buying a house with your friends without incurring a huge debt? Is it something you can walk away from?
No, only if you live in America. In America, if you don't want the property anymore and the loan is worth more than the house, you can just sort of leave the keys in the mailbox and sort of walk away from it. But in Australia, we have full recourse loans, so the bank will chase you really hard if you decide that you don't want the property anymore.
So if you buy a house, the first 6 months it falls apart, you've still got to resell it, pay the agent's fee, so you'd end up with what, 30 grand?
Yeah, it could be a lot of money because when you buy the property, you have to pay stamp duty. Mm-hmm. So in New South Wales, if you bought a property for $650,000, stamp duty is about $25,000. And then if you sell the property, you have to pay a real estate agent and then legal costs. So it could be $40,000 or $45,000 down the tube.
Wow. You don't want to just come up with this at a pub one night. We've got a text here. Someone said, we went into an investment property with my sister-in-law. She's now going through a separation. It's not pretty. Money and family or friends don't mix. That was from Dave in Sydney. But of course it does work out for some people. It can work out really well. And I want you to meet Liam. He and two good mates from high school own an investment property in Brisbane. And this is their experience.
Hi, my name is Liam. I'm 31 from Brisbane. And I've just purchased a house with a couple of my friends. One of my friends was interested in buying a house and he just didn't have the funds to do it himself. And he came to me because I work as a town planner. He didn't have enough money to save the deposit just for himself, so I decided I would help him out and go in with him. And then one of our other friends heard about this and he got on board as well. So it just kind of happened a bit organically.
So everyone was like, I want to buy a property too. Wait, I can't afford it to do it my own either.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much exactly what happened. And we found a place that was perfect. But yeah, it was just a little bit too expensive for one of us or two of us. So the two guys that I went into this with, one of them lives in Hong Kong and the other one lives in Canberra. we purchase it more of an investment than, something that all three of us will live in. It's in an area that's it's changing, and it's the property will be rezoned relatively soon. So for us, we only intend to have the house for maybe 2, 3, 5 years. So it's not so much of an long-term investment than what you would do with a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, so it's not kind of like, and then we'll move in the kids and this will happen and we'll have dogs together.
Yeah, exactly. That could go pretty pear-shaped.
Did you guys talk about the scenario of maybe one partner not being able to contribute because someone lost their job or something else happened in their life, and how that would play out for the other two partners?
Yeah, we did. I guess we all three of us have fairly good jobs, and it's pretty secure. Worst case scenario, one of us lost a job and wasn't able to contribute. The two of us, or even one of us, could probably handle the mortgage payments on their own. It might be a little bit tough, but I could cover the payments, as could either of the other two. Do you have any advice for anyone thinking about co-investing with mates? It's obviously not for everyone, and I'd be fairly choosy with the friends that I decided to do this with. It's also pretty important to have in-depth discussion about what you're doing it for, what your goals are at the end of it, and how long you want to keep it for, and just thrash out the details of. You might even discuss what you would do if one of you wants to sell, needs the money for something, and wants to get out.
On Triple J. And that was Liam, who's had a really good deal with his mates when they bought a house. And give us a call. Tell us what's your experience been. 1300 055536. That's 1300 055536. We have financial advisor James Gerard here to answer your questions. James, Liam sounds like he's got it sus there. They have a year-by-year plan. They know when they all want to get out, what their goals are. Is that how you make sure it goes well?
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like they've thought about it quite a bit, but also it's an investment property, which is quite different to living in a property that you buy with mates. I think there's less chance of things going wrong on investment property because you're not living together, so you don't have to worry about who's making noises, who's living in what part of the house, all those types of things. Who's paying the electricity bill? How do you split it? All the little things.
All the things that go on in a normal share house.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so you would really recommend, if people are serious about this, they don't think about actually living in it with their friends?
Yeah, I think most people would probably want to buy a property by themselves, but they don't, and they do it with other people because they can't afford to. So if you are going to do it with somebody else, make sure that you're both serious about it, and that you've really put a lot of effort to making sure that it is right for both of you. Otherwise, as we heard earlier, it can go wrong.
Jim, what do you think about buying a house with your mates? Have you ever thought about it? You there, Jim? No, I seem to have lost Jim. I'm going to go back to you, James. The thing with Liam and his mates is that they all had a similar level of job security. We heard him talk there about it. Do you think that that's important? You have to make sure you and your friends are at the same, I guess, in the same place in life. You have the same career level, same income, you're earning the same amount of income.
I think it is important that the people who buy the house together have similar interests and similar goals. People who've asked me about what do I think about buying houses together, I say to them that think of it like you're starting a business. So you wouldn't start a business with anybody. You want someone to be similar to you because they'll be business partners. So it's no different with buying a house with someone else.
Tina, two of your friends bought houses together. How did they make it work?
There was two guys in Collingwood. They bought a terrace and renovated it, but they had separate loans with the same bank, and they got a copy of each other's statements. They were friends, and they could tell whether either of them was behind in the mortgage, and then they had a legal document written up to say that if one person defaulted on the mortgage, the other person had the first option to buy them out.
Yeah, okay, that's a good tip. And Bree's got a tip here because she's a mortgage broker. Bree, what's your tip?
Basically, exactly what that lady was just saying there, making sure that the loan splits are separate as well. That's a good thing and a good place to start. Make sure you do your research into basically knowing each other's conduct with repayments and existing bills and stuff like that. I do recommend more so Friends can get a little bit messy. Business partners is what you sort of call each other in the end. You need to.
What about family? Is friends better than family in your opinion?
Family, I think, gets messy because you can
Even
sort
messier.
of, yeah, you sort of take a back seat and say, okay, brother, you can't afford it this month, then I'll put my bit in for you. So I think that's where it gets a bit messy, but make sure you get legal advice beforehand as well as mortgage advice beforehand.
Bree, thanks so much for the call. Thanks for all your calls tonight. Thanks to James Gerard here in our studio answering your questions. And head along to the Hack Facebook page. Let us know your thoughts. Stick around. Linda's up next. She's got lots of good music for you to get onto tonight. New one from Major Lazer, so don't miss out. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.